Yeah, I think I'm on now. I'm on now? Okay. I usually talk about loud enough, you probably wouldn't even need the mic, but thanks for coming out tonight. I'm going to read a little bit from 2 Corinthians chapter 5. A little bit of why I like to go into prisons. Let's read from that and I'll talk about it. So from now on, we regard no one from a worldly point of view. Though we once regarded Christ in this way, we do so no longer. Therefore, if anyone is in Christ, he is a new creation. The old has gone, the new has come. All this is from God, who reconciled us to himself through Christ and gave us the ministry of reconciliation, that God was reconciling the world to himself in Christ, not counting men's sins against them, and he committed to us the message of reconciliation. We are therefore Christ's ambassadors, as though God were making his appeal through us. We implore you on Christ's behalf, be reconciled to God. God made him who had no sin to be sin for us, so that in him we might become the righteousness of God. I think one of the, ever since the fall of creation, you know what God has been doing on this earth? He's been restoring people. In fact, that's probably his only message on this earth, is restoring that what Satan has taken in this world and done wrong. He keeps restoring it. And I think if we look at that as everybody being a restoration, I don't like to say a project, but everybody as being someone that Christ needs to restore. And that's what I love about going down to the prisons, and is helping people find reconciliation. And you know, some of the most difficult part is sometimes I think I'm better than those prisoners, but at the foot of the cross, everything is level, right? And when I go down there and listen to these prisoners and hear them talk and hear their testimony, sometimes they just bless me, and they're more on fire than I am, aren't they? And it's just exciting to see these prisoners' testimonies and things like that. So I really love going down into the prison. This last year was one of my highlights. I remember, I was at Fairplay, what was it, 25, 26 years ago, and I remember going into the old CCI prison. I don't know, down the tunnel, if anybody here has ever been in there. That was 25 years ago, and I remember taking my boys from camp in there. We were sitting on the electric chair where the people were, where they used to condemn the people to death, and I've loved prison ministry ever since that, and I don't know how many times I've been in prison since that. It doesn't really matter, but there's just something about prisoners that they don't have a problem with admitting their needs. They don't have a problem admitting that they did wrong. And you know, if we would just be like that in our church, in our church we all seem like we're trying to get better than everybody else. In a prison, you know, they're all, you know, we got a problem, we need help. And it's so much fun ministering to people that have a need, right? And I think sometimes we have a lot more needs than we're willing to express, and sometimes we just think we have it all together and we really don't. So that's one of the beauties of going down there. You can go ahead, Aaron, start doing some of the pictures. This here is at Abbeville, South Carolina. We go down in there in about 25 prisons, and this year we got almost all the prisons in South Carolina, all the state prisons, not the county prisons, all the state prisons. It's just an amazing ministry. I mean, I'm looking, today I got something from Prison Fellowship, and they're trying to raise $2.6 million by the end of this month to keep the Prison Fellowship ministry going. And I'm looking at this ministry. I mean, we're reaching out to the whole state of South Carolina. If Prison Fellowship would be doing what we would do, it'd probably cost them $5 million to do that, to get 500 volunteers together. So I just think the Mennonites and the Amish and Beachy and whoever just do such a good job in getting out there. This is the crowd of Abbeville before we start, and we're all together, and we drive the whole way down that night, and we're about an hour of sleep. Some of us can't hardly get any on the bus, and we're tired. We get all fired up here in the evening, and we have this great service here, and meet a lot of the same people after that. Then we go into we divide out 4 different areas. The Camden area, the Waterboro area, and Columbia and Abbeville, kind of 4 different areas in throughout the state there, and we kind of have that as a hub. The prison that we go into, the same prison every day. This is the group that Merle and a lot of the ones that are here tonight. Which prison is that? Kershaw. Okay. And we stayed at the same hotel as they did, but we went into Turbyville, and every day we would go to Turbyville, every day we would go to Kershaw, and then every night someone would have a program. This is Ransom here, Daddy Yoga there speaking. They spoke there one night, and then another night they came to our prison at Turbidale and spoke. So you have 25 singing groups in 25 different prisons. Every night someone sings, a group sings at the prison, and it's a new group every night. And that's one of the neat things I like about going down to the prison is get to meet these people from all over the United States, the Ransom group from Georgia, and then we have the Wisselman family, where they from Kansas or Nebraska, and 11 children, getting together and singing. I just, I don't take my children along when I get down there, and I just see this family of 11, and I'm just like, I wish I had my children here to give them a big hug, and it's just such an encouragement. I just love, and then they get in front of these prisoners, and then they start singing these songs like Daddy's Girl, and different songs like that. I think I could shed more tears in those couple of nights there in prison than I do all year usually. Just thinking of my family and what I have and what these prisoners don't have. And here's the group singing to the prisoners, and the groups usually know which songs kind of touch the hearts of the prisoners. A lot of times it's songs about children, and sometimes they have these little girls and little boys come and sing, and I'm just sitting there. And I had an incident in our family where my brother-in-law went to jail, and I know what the children kind of go through, not having their mom and dad, and then they have this little 3-year-old girl singing. You can see the men, they're just like, they can't believe it. They can't see their children, and they just love to go home and give their child a hug, and it just tears them apart. I mean, it touches their hearts like not too many other things do. My heart seems to be touched. And here's the altar call here. SCDC, that stands for South Carolina Department of Corrections. So all the prisoners wear those kind of clothes throughout the whole state of South Carolina. Could you imagine wearing tan every day? At least you wouldn't have a problem deciding what color to wear the next day. You just wear tan. This is a basketball group from Myerstown, Pennsylvania. They went down and played basketball, and they get some good competition. And I think they won most of the games around this prison. And they love we play with them. That's some of your greatest moments and times for the prisoners when you get right in there and play, do their things with them. You get to meet them in the yard. Here's one of the girls in the girls' prison. That's what you have, a little hole. Some of them don't even have that much room to talk to them. I think the next one here shows a little bit more of what we have sometimes. And there you can't even hardly see the guy, maybe a little crack. There's holes in there that you can talk through there, but that's not so handy when you get to talk to them. But yeah, that's typical of the prison cell back there. That's the size back there, and just I've been in the prison cells with the people. You get into this big room, and there's maybe usually 2 stacks, 2 layers, and there's about 75 cells in the bottom, 75 cells in the top, maybe 50. 2 people in a cell, so you have about 200 people in this big building, and they usually put us in there, and then they lock us in there, and we can't get out. Someone else, in case a riot or something starts in that room, they don't want anybody in there to be able to unlock the door and get out. So we're pretty well stuck in there, hoping that no riot starts, but you got 200. And what always amazes me about prisons is how young they are. I mean, in our prison, a lot of them are 23, 20, 18. The average age is probably around 23, 24. Most of them are married or older than that. They're thinking now, especially I got a boy that's 21, to think that he would be in here with 200 boys, and that's the typical inside the block of the cell. You see the steps going up. You would have, but it's usually nice if they let all the prisoners out. A little bit scary because you got 200 prisoners around, you don't know how they did. But that's usually the best way. We can sit at the bench there and talk with them. And what's fun about prison is, there's Ernie Stouffer. Remember Ernie Stouffer, guys? I don't know who got that picture. That's great. Ernie went along down the bus with this great old man, and he just got an occasion to get together and pray. I'm sure he wasn't begging the guys, but they saw one person praying, the rest of them wanted to come to pray. And you're there talking to somebody, and then there's another one waiting behind you, waiting to talk to you. They want help. They want people to talk to. In fact, we are probably the only human beings that they see in that prison cell for the whole year, except for the people that work in the prison system. I mean, nobody else walks down those cells except probably the group of Gospel Express. All the rest would be guards. So for us to go in there, about 10 or 15 men in that block, and come in there and talk to them, they're just like, this is Christmas to them. That's inside the cell there. they usually don't recommend us to go right into their cell, but every once in a while you get a chance to sit right on their beds, right in there in the cell with them, and you can have some really good talks in there. Some of the things that often challenges me is some of the people that are in jail what is really sad is they're closing down a lot of the mental institutes, and so there's a lot of men in prison that are slightly handicapped, slightly retarded, or slow learners, or have mental problems, and half of them are on drugs and things like that. It's just so sad to see. You know, I had one man that I was talking to, and another boy was there beside him. He was kind of just guarding him, and he told me, you know, his parents were a mess, and he got upset and had mental problems, and one night just went lost and went and robbed somebody here. He was a Christian, and you got to keep that picture about her, stay there. Anyhow, he was in prison just because he lost it mentally one time, and instead of putting him in a mental hospital, they sent him to prison with 200 other men, you know, and it's so sad to see some of that. They're just blessed when you come there and encourage them and lay your hands on them and pray for them and things like this. This is my great brother Raymond Burkholder from down at the Morgantown area. And this man has a testimony. He's great with the handicap. This guy was to heaven twice already. Saw the glories of heaven. He's been at the threshold of heaven. So many times in his life he's a walking miracle. But he goes down there and he can just speak with his heart, and especially for the people. Sometimes they let us go into that's really sad. Sometimes you go to the infantry in the hospital and see these men in there locked up in prison, slowly dying and hardly being able to talk and singing. When you sing songs about heaven, it really goes through you when you're in a prison, in a cell, and thinking that these people can't die with their family around them. They're going to die there with. And they see people like us once a year, and you know they just grab your hands and hardly let you go. And that's some of the most touching times here. Go ahead and do the next one. Crusade coming up in Florida, December 4th to the 8th. That's this year yet. And when you go to Florida, some of us go to Florida to have vacation. How about going down there to meet inmates? And then the regular crusade that we usually go to is the one down coming up February 9th and 13th. They even get us home in time for Valentine's Day. Every once in a while they have us there over Valentine's Day, but it's always that same week. The discipleship program is one of the neatest things. Almost everybody that's in prison is bitter and has sins and scars in their life that we can't imagine. I mean, you can just listen to stories all day long about some of the awful things that happened to them, and to have some of these seminars afterwards has been some of the neatest work. Follow-up ministries that I think there's 6 or 7 groups that go into the prisons after we do have these follow-up seminars. Because some more of them here next. Rejection, forgiveness, broken relationships, they all know what that's about. Anger resolution. And most of them are in jail because they just lost at one time. A lot of them deal with anger. And personal revival is another one that they're going to taking classes. And this is the Bibles that we hand out from EPS New Testament. And it's a blessing to be able to do that. I think that's pretty well a couple of them there. A couple of my highlights of going, I wrote down, one of them is the bus trip down. That's one nice thing about being far away. You get the bus trip down. Usually on the way down, we drive at night and usually not so much serious talking and things, but on the way back, I mean, we have some great revivals in the bus and some great stories to tell, and getting to know people you didn't know before, and the Amish and Mennonite people, and that's always one of my highlights is the bus trip down and back. And even this last year, I think cost us nothing. Somebody paid for that. Another thing I like to do is meeting people. How many different states? I think there's like 20 different states, Canada, and different areas of volunteers that come down there. So you always get a lot of times the same one year after year, and getting to know some of the same groups. Ransom we got to know this year, and Garments of Praise, get to know them in a personal way. And what's that song that Garments of Praise sings? The one that is a talking that they have a soundtrack on. I forget what it is, but I mean, when they played that soundtrack, in there at prisons, and it's always got stone walls, so the sound usually is really good in there, and just that hear Garments of Praise sing that song in there. I thought I was going to heaven right then. It was such a blessing. Another one I have here is encouragement from the prisoner. I mean, sometimes you go through the day and you're like, I'm not sure what I gave out today, but I'm blessed. I mean, these guys, a lot of them really ain't that discouraged. A lot of them are just saying, especially the Christians, I can't believe God put me here and gave me a second chance. And I mean, you can imagine all that time to read the Bible. A lot of them know their Bible, and they really challenge you and encourage you in things. Love. Does someone say something? Another thing I really enjoy is after you've been giving out all day or receiving and wore out, it's usually 9 or 10 o'clock you get back and you're just ready to unload. So we all go to a restaurant together, and we, about 12 men. You use ladies that have sewing circles, you know what that's like. Us, usually men don't get together in a restaurant like that, but we do, and we have a lot of fun out there. We can hardly get. There was one restaurant right close to our motel that was open all night, and there was a group went over to that motel, and they were there at 2 o'clock at night, and they were just sharing. I mean, one of the brothers went out and said, I'm going out to the restaurant, IHOP I think it was, and there's like 6 other brothers that followed him there, and some of them didn't even know each other. And I mean, there was unloading that night, sins were taken care of, challenging each other, and were taken care of. I mean, they had a revival in that restaurant at 2 o'clock at night, so that's something neat thing. Then we have revivals in the motels usually. We get together in the motel room and sing, it's a lot of fun. Masons almost want to have sewing circle, guys. Get together every week with the men, but yeah. Another thing that always challenges me is when I hear the prisoner stories, it makes me appreciate my upbringing. I just come home and just want to give all my children a hug and just thank the Lord for where He's put us on. We just have so much more. You hear their stories, it just makes you appreciate that. And helping the inmates find Christ. Last year, one day I helped 4 people come to Christ. And not credit to me, but that is just so much fun. I mean, I had one brother here I helped to Christ, and I got to talk to the next one, and he wanted to go to Christ. And I don't think I was that high ever in my lifetime. But that is one of the neatest things. And there's nothing like it, brothers and sisters, I'm telling you. And you have the opportunity down there. And I think there's something neat about serving the least of our society. Where have you served me? And he that serves the least of these, so has he done it unto me. And there's something beautiful about going to the foot of the cross and being in there with those inmates that have made so many mistakes and realize that I'm no better than them. And it helps you. It's a lot better than walking around. I don't want to be critical about our area, but these people that have all the perfect yards and all the perfect houses and hardly make any mistakes and have the nicest, everything around here. Sometimes it's nice just, you can be dirty, you can just be yourself, because these people are all at the bottom, and it's sometimes fun just to go down to the bottom with them and just be real. Because I think sometimes we just live like fakes around here. It's just sad. And last but not least, sometimes what I like to go down is get my good old Southern tea when I go down there. I was in Fairplay for 15 months, and I still like my Southern tea, so I always like to go down and get it. That's not really the best reason, but I love the hospitality in the South, and I'm glad Branson came up. These guys know how to do it down there. I've been doing it straight living. And the guards, I'm getting to know some of the guards. I got to know Keith Brady is the chaplain down there. He's going to come visit us for a week this summer sometime, and you just make some great friendships there. So yeah, if we can do 5 buses, I don't think we have enough people in here to do 5 buses, but and there's a place for the ladies too. So tell your friends, it's an experience. I'm going to tell you a story or so. Dan, remember that? Not this year, but last year. Dan's the one that was singing. I always like when Dan's along because he sings so well. And in those prison walls, it just echoes in there. And we were in this prison where they all were locked down inside this thing. And I was tense because they were bad. They all got locked in. And I mean, you could feel the tension in there. And then we went out of that block. We went into another block where there's a bunch of Christians and a bunch of people that were there a long time. And Dan started playing his song, and we started singing at the top of the voice. And before we knew it, these prisoners were out with us. They all gathered around us, and we had like 150 people singing and playing guitar. I mean, I don't think it ever sounded so beautiful and echoed so loud like it did that time. That was such a blessing. I thought I was going to fly that time too, but I mean, it's to hear 150 men singing in the prison, raising their hands, and Daniel playing the guitar. It really don't get better than that, does it? All right, so much for my pep talk.
Thank you, Calvin. Appreciate that. And if you want more information, you get on Gospel Express's sign-up sheet. That's in the back there. And feel free to join us next year. We'd be glad if you could, many of you could come along and invite others also. We have with us Brother Nelson. Is it Weaver? Martin. Wants to share about what's happening locally. So we're going to turn our time to.
Good to be here tonight. My name is Nelson Martin. I'm the Director of Support for Prison Ministry, which is a Lancaster County-based nonprofit. We have chaplains and programs in the Lancaster County Prison Youth Center, and I'll just briefly introduce them to you a bit tonight. But first, to the song leaders that sang that rousing song about soon and very soon, you really got into singing that, but you missed a verse. About 10 years ago, I was in the Minersville Federal Prison. I'm part of the Millport Mennonite Church, which is in the Lidditz area, and every month we went up there and did programs in the Minersville Federal Prison. And one time, they have a prison choir, and they always had to, after the sermon, they'd sing a song. And they sang Soon and Very Soon. Now, they were not quite as on key as we were tonight, but boy, they had a lot of passion. They were into it. And then at the end, they said, we wrote a verse. Guess what that verse was? No more prisons there. We are going to see the King. Now, that isn't our program tonight, right? But yes, it is. No more prisons there. We are going to see the King. That was pretty moving to me because some of them probably had life sentences. Some of them were 50 years old and probably had another 20-year sentence. And maybe the only way they're going to get out of there is when they go to see the King. And so they sang that with a passion. Well, Brother Ephraim asked me to share briefly two things tonight. And I decided to use just very simple words. Why we go to prison and how we go to prison. Prisons are dark, lonely places. Many of you have been there in ministry and know that. If you live in this area, you know that almost every day there's a new murder, there's a drug deal, there's a sexual abuse, there's some criminal activity that we used to say was maybe in New York City or Philadelphia or Reading. And people are getting to the end of themselves in prison, but that's where some of them are hearing about the Lord. And that's where some of them are responding to God. And so tonight, I want to just tell you a little bit about a local mission. There's certainly wonderful opportunities around the world. There's, all kinds of things that we hear about, African orphanages and Haiti relief and Bibles for China and all kinds of ministries. But there is one right here in our backyard. So why do we do this? Two scriptures. One is in Luke 4, where you remember Jesus stood up in the temple and he said, the scroll was given to him, Luke 4, and he said, the Spirit of the Lord is on me, because he has anointed me to preach good news to the poor, to proclaim freedom to prisoners, and give freedom to captives. Now that was Jesus' ministry, and I think we'd all agree with that, but it's not finished, is it? Do any of you know anyone tonight that's needy? I'm sure you do. Our world has so many needs. And so this is our mandate as Christians. And I propose to you that this is a job, a task that we all can be involved in some way. Another thing that we often talk about in prison ministry is this little statement: not all people behind prison bars are captive, not all people on the outside are free. Just think about that a little bit. Not every person in the prison bars are captive, not everyone on the outside is free. The other scripture is over in Hebrews 13, and I'll only read one verse, but read the first 8 verses of Hebrews 13 sometime, because I don't know that there's any place in the Bible that lists like 1, 2, 3, there's 8 of them, core values of Christian faith, core values of what it means to follow Jesus. There's things about sexual purity, about loving brothers, about hospitality, about not loving money. And then verse 3 says, remember those in prison as if you were there with them, and those who are mistreated as if you yourselves were suffering. That's our core value. That's why we go to prison. That's why we share the gospel with those in prison. And we have some wonderful people that get involved in that. And I know that there's some of them here tonight, and you have done things in different ways. I was speaking to a businessmen's group in, I think it was Mannheim or East Petersburg a couple years ago, and we shared some of the things that our brother shared here. You get locked in there every day. We have staff that are in there every day, and no cell phones, no keys, no wallets. You just kind of, you're a prisoner when you're in there with them, but obviously they let us go at the end of the day. Someone said when my talk was finished, how can you get anyone to work for you? Why would anyone be a chaplain? Good question. I'd never been asked that. But I said the answer is that I don't know that it's any different than a minister of a church or a pastor of a congregation or even a leader of a small group or something like that, because the setting is different. The message is the same, but the setting is different. But we have the message of Jesus Christ. So how do we do it? Just in a couple minutes here. We're the ones that brought the prison cell, so make sure you take a look at that. We use that in a lot of displays and seminars and things like that, mission conferences. You can actually go inside, see how it feels to be in there. It's 6x8. It's very, very cozy. No, not really. It's kind of ugly, but just take a look at that and think about the many people that are there. Here in Lancaster County Prison, we have a contract with the county. We provide chaplains. We have 8 paid chaplains and about 12 regular volunteers that are badged employee level. So that's 20 persons that are in and out of Lancaster County Prison. We, on any day shift, we usually have about 8, sometimes 10 people. We do Bible studies, teaching classes, supervising pastors that come in to visit and that sort of thing. We do a lot of listening, a lot of counseling, a lot of sharing, a lot of praying for people. Lancaster County Prison has about 1,000 people right now. We've been up to 1,100, 1,200, 90% men and 10% are women. And then we have 3 part-time chaplains over at the youth center. That's the juvenile facility, ages 10 to 17. And that has about 50 persons. Now, how can you be involved? One of the things, I'm not getting buses together because we're crowded and we don't have a lot of opportunities to take extra people in except pastors and some volunteers that go in. But I have a brochure back there. It's a paper that just simply says how churches and interested people can help in prison ministry. We're always interested in talking to people that might be available sometime to do some volunteer work or to do some prison ministry, but you must know that it's very restricted. I'm sure all of us could call the local retirement community or a hospital and say, can we come in and Christmas carol, or can we come in and visit people that get no visitors, but you can't do that in prison. It's a very restrictive setting. But stop by and pick up a paper. I would say the biggest challenge I would put out to you tonight is the great need for aftercare. There are 6,000 people leaving Lancaster County Prison in a year's time. 6,000 entries, 6,000 releases. Now about half of them are moving on to state prisons, so they're not technically getting out, but about 3,000 are getting out. But then another 1,000 or 2,000 are coming back to the county from state prisons. All of these people, thousands of them, need jobs. They need mentors. They need sometimes places to live. They need someone to drive them to doctor appointments, to all kinds of things like get their driver's license again. There's just all kinds of needs. So I would challenge you. That's, I think, one of the biggest needs that we have in Lancaster County. I know many of you are acquainted with Bishop Lloyd Hoover, who works with us in a number of things, and he has some aftercare houses, and he's in touch with a number of people. I'd be glad to talk to you more about that if you'd like, because that's a challenge that I would put before you tonight, that if you can't go away somewhere, maybe there's an opportunity right here, you can mentor someone. Take some time. It's discouraging sometimes. I have a guy right now that's probably, 55 or so, and we've tried for years to help him, and he's living in Lancaster in a little apartment, and he's been in and out of prison, and well, it depends, how much he's been drinking, how friendly he is, or how much he thinks he needs help, and it gets discouraging sometimes, but we keep sowing the seeds. So blessings to you, and I'll be around afterwards tonight, and I'll be glad to talk to you. Stop by and pick up some brochures, and God bless you for caring for those that are in prison.